I know that you have a passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Are there
Mhm.
any things from this industry that might apply to that specific field as well?
I think with the diversity, equity, and inclusion, probably easier at sometimes when you're not face to face, because sometimes people can't tell who you are, um, just in a conversation. So that may open more doors or opportunities where, and then the same in reverse, people can tell exactly where you're from or who you are by your dialect, and that builds a foundation quicker because they feel like, okay, this person could be my neighbor, this person could be my friend, as opposed to just being face to face. Now, there are some benefits to being face to face. I hear it all the time. I just want to see somebody. I just want to be able to walk in their office. I just want to sit down with them. But you have to think about, is it just about that person or is it about that brand? What are they offering besides just a face-to-face conversation? So with diversity and equity and inclusion, it gives you in sales, it gives you the opportunity to engage many different people from many different backgrounds, which I feel like that opens the door for any job in any industry because when you have that kind of skill set as a salesperson, um, you're more comfortable to talk to various groups of people. And so, and then it opens doors for you because you have that conversation. So, would a company be more willing to ask a certain group of people in that job because they're comfortable just talking to a variety of people? Yeah. So, that's probably one of the most important things is to be able to articulate that and understand people and uh, I think what I would say is it build a skill set where some people don't if they're only in their certain group all the time. That's really great question.
I appreciate that. I It's so interesting. I know that diversity, equity, and inclusion has some myths and has some things that maybe are misunderstood about it. How would you explain diversity, equity, inclusion as a profession to someone who was considering that field?
I would say an opportunity or a position to see various groups of people and ensure that those different groups of people, whether it's their hair, skin, eye, have the same opportunity and included in any situation where they don't feel like they have to do anything more than the next person in their own group, or they don't have to work harder than the person who looks different from them. They should all be equally, right? Equally and fairly treated in within any organization. And sometimes that is hard because people have old mindsets. And in order to have diversity, equity, and inclusion, you have to have a growth mindset and you have to want to include people and you have to understand that they have value um, when they're of different backgrounds. It just opens up their world to people's world to many different opportunities.
I wonder what are some of the common challenges that you would face in a diversity, equity, and inclusive environment?
I think some of the challenges is people not being able to be their or not feeling like they're able to be their authentic self. Um, like if your hair is curly, wear curly hair. You know, who cares, right? If you like red lipstick, wear red lipstick. If you want to paint your nails blue, paint them blue. Those things are just a part of your identity, but they're not who all of who you are. And you should be comfortable in who you are. Uh, and I know I've spoken to peers and they say, well, certain places don't let you be your true self. But I challenge people, if they're not letting you be your true self, then either challenge them to be a better company or move on. Like, right? Because if they can't accept you for something that you really can't change, right? Some things you can't change at all, then that's probably not the best place for you. And you shouldn't be supporting an organization that doesn't fairly treat all people.
What are some of the principles? What are some of the paradigms that someone who's interested in working in DEI might need to be successful?
Honesty, transparency, open-mindedness, willingness to speak. to other people, to accept other ideas that they may not agree with, but at least listen to it to get a better understanding of where that person may be coming from. And I think really just to see people and hear people and ask the hard questions. Like really you really must ask the hard question. What has that person or why is that person that way? And don't take things for granted. Don't make someone else feel like their feelings are not valid because you haven't felt that or hadn't been in that situation. Because it is, and it is important to understand them or that person. Yeah.
So that sounds like a couple steps beyond empathy. Can you discuss the connection between empathy and these principles?
Understanding, right? So with empathy, you're understanding what that person went through and you're acknowledging it and you're confirming how they feel, but that doesn't mean that you always have to agree with it necessarily, right? And I say that because one person's situation, it may appear to be wrong to you, but it may appear to be right to them. And so, again, their feelings would be very valid in that situation. But just being more so with diversity, have a listening ear, right? Like listen 90% of the time and talk only 10. And I feel like if that occurred more often, things would be a whole lot better for all groups of people.
A lot of our students and a lot of people working in organizations might struggle to see the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They might not have the background in intercultural communication. Maybe you have a story that can help bring in this topic into better focus for that audience.
Myself as well as other people of African descent, um, a few times or quite often, sometimes people of other nationalities, ethnicities, or races want to touch our hair or feel the need to touch our hair without our permission. And that can be a bit offensive, especially when you don't know that person or somebody walking by just touches your child's hair without permission. Those things do bother a lot of people, or making jokes or making comments about why does your hair look like that or why it's not. And I always say, the reason I look the way I am, the way my hair is, because God made me that way, right? You get a problem, you just take it up with Him. But but it's, a lot of that, can hurt people of different backgrounds because it's for some of them, it's like you're saying that we're not good enough or or we're not assimilating enough or we don't fit into what you or your idea of beautiful is, and that can definitely be a problem. Or just I mean, I rarely get people that just make off comments, but for the most it's been generally about my hair, where looking back probably at that time I was pretty pretty upset, but thinking that I would say now that they were just ignorant, they're just blind to what that meant because they didn't have the understanding of the roots of what those things meant. But I do believe that that's an opportunity for anyone to turn it into a teaching moment, right? Don't just leave it there and get upset and offended and maybe use vulgar language. Help them to understand what that means and why it is important not to do that thing so that they don't do it to the next person, right? I would say it's better to come from curious than to make a flat out statement that could offend. Because curious, we understand. Just blanket statements is little to no forgiveness in those, right? So that would be my comment, my my thought about that.
I love that. I wonder what is a strategy that someone could use today to be more mindful in their approaches to these kinds of issues?
Research. I think with the internet and everything that we have at our fingertips, you can really look things up and have a better understanding of people. You don't necessarily have to go up to a Spanish person or a Black person or an Asian person and start asking them questions about their ethnicities. You can do research and understand all the things that they went through in the country that you're in, like the things they had to overcome, and be mindful of that and show them a little bit more respect and celebrate them. I don't, and I say that you don't have to throw them a parade, but show them that you appreciate what they're doing, and just little things like that, and when you speak to them, don't come from a place of judgment, come from a place of kindness, and with a loving heart, I would say. And that changes everything, in my opinion.
How do you know you've been successful with your diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in your specific organization?
That's really good. I do work on in my organization to be a part of groups that support all diversities. So I'm in many. I'm in Asian American groups because I just love Asian Americans, and I'm in Latino, Hispanic, Spanish groups, just because I love to learn about their history and the things that they have accomplished. As well as I'm in groups that focus primarily on Black culture, because being of African descent doesn't conclude that I know everything about African culture. And there are so many things that many different groups, and I'm in quite a few, have attributed to the United States that's often not acknowledged or recognized or appreciated. Not everyone that came to America is trying to suck, suck all the money out or things like that. But there are people who made great leaps and bounds in education and in math and science to benefit everyone as a whole, not just their cultural group. And so I think that it's important to recognize that and acknowledge that, and myself and within my organization, I'm very transparent. And so I tell, people that I'm working with, you know, um, feel free and comfortable to always speak to me and ask me questions. And it really does take a lot to offend me. So if you got me to that point, you've asking some out of the world questions, right? But I want you to feel comfortable that if I say something, I promise you, I'm not saying it to be hurtful. It's probably something that I someone told me and I thought it was the truth, but I will never know the truth unless you correct me. And so, and don't feel like you can't tell me the truth. I don't want it to be that kind of situation. And so a part of that within the organization I work with, people are very honest and very transparent with me. And so I think so much so that sometimes I fight their cause for them when they should be fighting it. But it is very beneficial when people trust you enough to tell you um, the things that they're going through because of who they are.
Fantastic. And measuring success by the number of people we have engaged in these different groups is a great way to say, here's the criteria. And have we met that criteria? Can you think of any other criteria that might come to mind when implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that can really make a difference in our organizations and communities?
'Cause my favorite word is curious, right? I learned it from a friend. But I really think companies need to come from curious. Ask the people of these backgrounds what's important to them and incorporate that into the organization's community, right? And ensure that they have a comfortable, safe environment where they can express themselves, where they don't feel like they're going to be judged, or if they say what that really is in their heart, that they won't get promoted or able to do better things. So when you have that kind of foundation, people thrive more. And I feel like when you have that foundation, people tend to be loyal more. Those are the people that you'll keep in a company 40 or 50 years because you've heard their voice and their voice matters and you did something about it. You didn't just listen. You didn't just take notes, but you actually implemented something to make them feel like they're just as important as anyone else. And that's the real important thing. You have to do something and not just in the organization, those leaders have to do something and not just say something. Be about that business, so to speak. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Tron, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you online?
You can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn at Tron Walker. Please send me messages. Let me know what you're thinking. I say even let's get the conversation started about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what you want to do and make that change where you're at. And let's work together and accomplish great things.
Awesome. Tron, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise.